The Holy Gospel of our Savior Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Some Sadducees, those who say there is no resurrection, came to Jesus and asked him a question. Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife but no children, the man shall marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married and died childless. Then the second and the third married her, and so in the same way all 7 died childless. Finally, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had married her. Jesus said to them, those who belong to this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are considered worthy of a place in that age and in the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. Indeed, they cannot die anymore because they are like angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection. And the fact that the dead are raised, Moses himself showed in the story about the bush, where he speaks of the Lord as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living. For to him all of them are alive. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ. I'm living for the coming of Christ. I want to be with Jesus. When we have run with the patience of the race, we shall know the joy of Jesus. In him there is no darkness at all. The night and the day are both alike. The Lord is the light of the city of God. Shine in my heart, Lord Jesus.
Please be seated. Now, this season, as our Earth's orbit around the sun changes, sunlight dims, sending us indoors to contemplate things we can't see in the dark. The promise and relief of greening hills, filling reservoirs, the winter arrivals of migrating birds like golden-crowned and white-crowned sparrows, the promise of berries, acorns, and seeds to feed them. And in the webcam that I watch year-round, the faithful return of the bald eagles, Jackie and Shadow, to their expanding Big Bear nest to birth eggs for the next generation. Fall is a season of transformation. Flowers turn to seeds, weeds and wildflowers germinate. Falling leaves harbor beneficial insects. And in the soft, damp earth, moles begin to tunnel again. Bees rest in nests, while butterflies find bark or hollow trees to shelter them from the cold. And we here in the church contemplate our transformation too. Our transformation as living saints, sanctified by the Holy Spirit. And our transformation by death into new life with Christ in heaven. We celebrate the saints gone before us who still lead us in life as they experience the joy and the treasure and the reward of the righteous in the resurrection. All Saints Sunday ushers in what is known in the Church of England as the Kingdom season. It lasts until Advent. And in the growing darkness of this season, we celebrate that God's love is the light that never goes down. that God still speaks words of eternal comfort and good hope to all of God's people, and that by God's good grace, we are the first fruits for salvation, a fruitful people. And this is our Christian hope. Yet when I read the lessons for this week for the first time, my heart fell. To be honest, it fell because these scriptures bring news both sad and glad. For sad, both Job and the psalmist suffer unjustly, as do many here in the world and in America. The Sadducees and the Pharisees in these scriptures compete for power and influence as sharply as Christian nationalists and progressive Christianity today. The brokenness of the world in the ancient days mirrors our human trials on this side of heaven. And besides that, the gospel today reminds us of our longing to be reunited with loved ones we no longer see. But after I prayed with these difficult scriptures, the darkness lifted, and the good news glistened like the fall bright sun. The good news is that today, as in days of old, God welcomes our bold and faithful prayers for justice and peace and love. Jesus proclaims the grace and the mercy of resurrection, angels, the promise of heaven, and God strengthens us to be the first fruits of the reign of God here on earth. Both Job and Psalm 17 are laments. They're bold, honest, and faithful prayers to God that speak the truth to Jesus Christ, who was himself a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Now, laments like these don't often appear in the Sunday lectionary or in our hymnal because they're not happy-clappy. They're not invitational to joy. Theologian Walter Brueggemann calls them prayers of disorientation. They express our frustration, our disappointment, and our grief in a world that is still the opposite of heaven. In the words of singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell in her song Banquet, "Come to the dinner gong, the table is laden high, fat bellies and hungry little ones, tuck your napkins in, and take your share. Some get the gravy, and some get the gristle, and some get the marrow bone, and some get nothing, though there's plenty to spare." One today in our scriptures with nothing, though there's plenty to share, is Job. He's a righteous man who suffers and rages against God for all that he has lost, all his livestock and servants, all his children and his health. Job is so angry. He wants his diatribe against God engraved on a rock forever, it says today. And another suffering innocent is the psalmist who prays to be protected from the wicked who assault me, from my deadly enemies who surround me. Now I imagine we all know, every one of us, good and righteous people, friends, family, who have good cause to lament. The death of a loved one, a broken relationship, addiction, a shattering illness, and loss of resources to sustain us or our families. Many we don't even know suffer unjustly. Mentally ill people on the streets, mothers and fathers without food for their children. Political refugees welcome to our nation who have done everything right by filing paperwork and attending hearings, yet suddenly disappeared from loved ones without due process. The scriptures of Job and the Psalms are part of what's known as the wisdom literature, written to teach us how to live a righteous life. They assume, as Jesus does, that God still lives and speaks, that God just didn't create the earth and walk away. The Pharisees before Jesus believed in God's righteousness and love and life. They believe that God hears honest, fervent prayers for God's merciful, loving kindness and for protection under the shadow of God's wings. They trusted God to listen to Job and the psalmist and their own pleas for justice by God's hand. That's justice by God's hand, not ours. The world is broken. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me under the shadow of your wings. When I once went through a really hard time in my life, an experience of betrayal, I came across a book written by a Jesuit priest who later became an Episcopal priest, Pierre Wolf. It's called May I Hate God? And the answer is yes. We not only have God's permission to pray like Job or the psalmist, to share our broken hearts with God, even angrily, without fear of judgment for our righteous indignation. And God can take it, because to God, it's simply a cry for help. Like a lost dog for its owner, or a baby for its mother. And God welcomes our prayers, because in the tears and moans of lament, we are real. Lament is not walking away from God or the church in defiance, which I had done at that time, but faithful, bold prayer that pleads with God to save us, to transform us, and indeed to transform the world through us. Hope of healing and justice and freedom is the gift of lament. And collective lament, people lamenting together, gave hope to the Jews who were enslaved by Pharaoh, to the Babylonian exiles, and today our collective laments, shared around us and with one another, encircle us with a beloved community and surely reach God's ears. Now we cannot ignore the other bad news in these scriptures, the theological conflict between Sadducees and Pharisees. The Sadducees who confront Jesus today are a sect that never accepted as canon any biblical books beyond the Torah, the first 5. They rejected wisdom literature's ideas of resurrection or heaven or angels or even a living God who listens and speaks. Moreover, they encouraged and had provoked theological conflicts with the Pharisees whenever they could. In today's gospel, the Sadducees provoked Jesus with a gotcha question. After all, they didn't even believe in heaven. They wanted to prove their power in the community as if there were a TV moment for the world to watch. The Sadducees begin by reciting an ancient Levirate custom that considered women as property, passed on from husband to husband, so they would be protected in a world that would otherwise abandon them to poverty. But Jesus does not take the bait. Women are not property. They never were, and they are not now. They are like angels. And good news, heaven does not have the same religious rules that earth does, which at the time were as good as civic law. The dead are children of God, not to be passed down or passed around or oppressed or abused in this life or the next. The dead we love are free to love whomever they love, free to reach out to us here on earth and in heaven with their well-worn and hard-won wisdom and forgiveness and love. And many of us know this to be true. We have been touched by angels. And there's more good news. The scriptures, both Jewish and Christian, do speak of angels in heaven. Angels help God's people. Angels proclaim Jesus' birth. And when Jesus is baptized, a voice comes from heaven, "You are my Son, the beloved. With you I am well pleased." Angels wait on Jesus in the wilderness. And when Jesus is transfigured, a voice comes from the cloud, "This is my Son, my chosen, listen to him." In the gospel, Jesus witnesses to heaven. In Jesus' teaching, there is joy in heaven, unexpected treasure in heaven, reward in heaven. There is resurrection in heaven, our transformation from earthly bodies to heavenly ones. And there is justice in heaven. The angels carry the dead Lazarus to a heavenly feast, while Dives finds torment. And in Jesus' life, how he lived it, we get glimpses of heaven above. Jesus transforms the hearts of repentant sinners, like the Samaritan woman or Zacchaeus, and frees them from the burden of guilt and shame. Jesus heals all, regardless of their wealth or their power or their religion. He heals lepers, a hemorrhaging woman, a man with a demon, a royal official's son, a Syrophoenician woman's daughter, so they can return healed to their families and communities. In Jesus' beloved community, 5,000 and more hungry people eat on hillsides. And hungry and bereft disciples eat fish on a lakeshore with the risen Christ. What a blessed glimpse of heaven. My brothers and sisters, the good news is that today and every day, the Spirit blesses and sanctifies you and me to be the children of God that God is creating us day by day to be. Stand firm in the faith like the angels in heaven. Pray boldly with laments. Your will be done on earth as in heaven. Pray boldly with your intercessions for others. Thank God for your blessings. And use whatever gifts God has given you to create a beloved community where God, our Creator and Redeemer and Sanctifier, reigns and laments like Job or the psalmist. Let's do this so that laments won't be needed here, because God reigns, and there is justice and righteousness and peace on the earth.